Hello, everybody. This is Carrie Ann Edgar,
And Samantha Thompson.
and we want to talk to you today about access appeals training. Specifically, we want to talk to you about the differences between access appeals and ELMS appeals, why submit an access appeal, what can you appeal, what the criteria are, status definitions, what does it all mean, and how do you submit an appeal?
Before we discuss access appeals, it's important to distinguish them from ELMS appeals. ELMS appeals are used to correct this or update a student's English learner status. For example, removing an incorrect designation, updating status based on records from another state, submitting an exit appeal, or correcting EL entry or exit dates. Access appeals, on the other hand, relate specifically to a student's participation in access testing and the accountability associated with that assessment.
So, why would you want to submit an access appeal? Well, in order to talk about that, we need to walk through some of the federal requirements, and both the federal ESSA legislation as well as the IDAPA, which is state rule, requires that all English learners take the annual English language proficiency assessment in the state of Idaho. That is defined as the WIDA alternative and access assessment. So when we talk about who is an English language learner, that refers to all students in a current active status of L1, LE, or the EW, which is where the parent has opted for the student not to participate in the program. However, again, all English learners, if they're identified, need to participate in the annual assessment. So federal and state law it has the expectation of 100% identified students participating in the assessment, and also that all of those students complete all 4 domains, which refer to the reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So in other words, in order to be counted as having participated in the annual English language assessment, all EL identified students need to complete all 4 domains. However, we know that real life happens and there are exceptions to that 100%. So specifically here, I'm referring to the domain exemptions. These are situations in which 1 to 2 of the domains may have been excluded according to the student's IEP or 504 plan. You should also note here that at least 2 of the domains need to have been completed in order to qualify for a domain exemption. In these cases, the state needs a way to be able to document the situation and review the exemption request. So specifically, what can you appeal for? And again, this all refers to the 100% participation. So for all EL students, those in L1, LE, and EW status, a district can appeal to add or remove a student from the accountability formula if any of the following criteria apply to your student's situation. So we talked about domain exemptions. Examples here are for nonverbal students, deaf, hard hearing, those types of situations, students, again, that have the IEP or 504. However, there also could be medical situations that arise. In these cases, we would require documentation for the medical emergency and demonstration that the student was absent for the entire testing window. So there was no opportunity for the student to have been tested. Other extenuating circumstances could also apply here, things like a death in the family, house fire, etc. We really hope that these are very, very rare situations, but realize that there are extenuating circumstances and medical incidents that can and do arise from time to time. So just be sure that you have documentation for those. Number 4 is the misidentified. Typically, these refer more to a mismatch between the ELM system and what we would see in the WIDA system. So be sure that you are also checking the ELM system to make sure all the information there is accurate, and we will be checking on our side as well so that we have the correct status for all the students. Going a little deeper into the reasons why this is important refers to the participation rate calculation. So in the numerator here, you'll see the number of English learners who received a valid overall composite score or successfully appealed a partial score on the WIDA alternative or access. And again, that's the domain exemptions, where we impute the information and calculate the weighted average. So and the denominator is the number of English learners who received a valid overall composite score or successfully appealed a partial score, plus the number of English learners identified who were enrolled on or before February through March, which is the testing window, and did not participate in the WIDA alternative assessment or access. So keeping in mind here that these students then are counted as 0 in the numerator, meaning your district will have a participation rate outcome that is below the 100% goal. So that is really what we're trying to capture here is when a district is not in 100% compliance with the 100% students being tested, what are those reasons? So now that you know why it's important to submit an access appeal and what criteria need to be met for approval, we will walk you through some of the status definitions that you'll encounter in the application.
So on the summary screen, it summarizes the preliminary proficiency rate, the participation rate, and the percent of students making progress toward English language proficiency in the schools in your district. These figures may change as we process the appeals you submit. Once you review the summary, you will want to click the Appeals tab. To export a CSV file of all EL students and the results for your LEA, click the Export tab. The next few slides provide a brief walkthrough of the appeals screen and highlight the key information available on the main page. To manage your appeals, begin by reviewing the list of students associated with your LEA. Each row contains important student information, including the school number, student identification number, last name, first name, and date of birth. You'll notice there are 3 appeal-related fields displayed for each student, and we will take a closer look at these fields and their purpose on the next few slides.
So the column referring to the student status descriptions are detailed here. The definitions then are listed in the right-hand column. So the status is determined by what the student did or did not complete during the access testing window. Depending on the student status, they may be included or excluded in the participation rate calculation. What you want to pay particular attention to here is the non-EL completers and also the non-EL partial. This means that within the state system, these students are listed as not being EL students, but yet we have a score for them. That should indicate to you that there's something you need to pay closer attention to in these cases.
Now that you are more familiar with some of the definitions in the application, we will walk you through the how-to steps you need to take to submit an appeal. Once you've reviewed your student statuses and determined an appeal is needed, click on the Edit button to access the individual appeal record. Begin creating the appeal. You are not able to modify the information at the top of the student appeal. The fields for creating an appeal begin on the bottom half of the screen. The appeal information you see will vary based on the student status. The steps are as follows. First, confirm whether the EL status loaded from ELMS is correct. If not, you will need to modify the EL status by selecting the EL status is incorrect checkmark, which will open a drop-down to select the correct EL status. Next, select the appeal reason. The appeal reasons will differ based on the EL status and whether the student has a complete, partial, or missing assessment. After filling in the necessary appeal fields, write a justification explaining your appeal. Upload documentation for the appeal. Please note that the department will not review saved appeals. The appeal must be submitted to have it reviewed. The save function allows users to keep information entered prior to a submission. Users can also select Cancel to close the appeal edit screen.
So next you will notice the appeal status. And here are the definitions for those different status options that you will see. So the appeal status will be updated once the state staff has had an opportunity to review the information that you had provided. So if you have any questions along the way, we will reach out. Otherwise, assume good things. The timeline for the state completing the appeals process will be 2 weeks following the closing date of the window. So looking at the descriptions, you'll notice not appealed. That means no appeal has been submitted, not submitted, was created but not submitted, returned. The district, you had submitted an appeal, but the appeal has been returned by the department, so there's an ongoing process. Submitted means that you had submitted an appeal, but it has yet to be reviewed. So that means you're waiting on us for something. And completed meeting means that you had submitted an appeal and the appeal has either been approved or denied by the department. And again, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to contact us. So appropriate evidence that you want to think about in that justification box that Sam had pointed to include everything must have verifiable documentation. Sorry, somebody's coming in. So providing the documentation up front helps us to expedite the review process. Also keep in mind that when you have questions and if you have questions and you're emailing back and forth, that PII needs to be secure and not sent through email. So appeal reasons include being, dropped out, withdrew, or expelled. So enrollment information in IC would be appropriate. Medical emergency would require a doctor's note or medical provider information. Test materials returned late. That requires the DRC verification. Incorrect identified as an EL. That means additional information needs to be updated in ELMS, most likely. Completed WIDA testing in another state. You would need the WIDA score report from another state or even an email from them, private or homeschooled. Enrollment information corrected in IC submission. And then for a foreign exchange student, enrollment information corrected in the IC submission. So next you'll notice the outcome field, the definitions here. The outcome status refers to whether or not you can expect the student to be included in the participation rate calculation or not. So after reviewing the information for the students in your district, be sure to let us know, again, if you have any questions along the way.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day.